Welcome, everybody, to the Beer Guys Radio Show. Thank you for joining us for this special St. Patrick's Day edition of the Beer Guys Radio Show. I am Tim Dennis. Brian Hewitt, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Tim. I'm doing good. How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm making it through. It's actually a little warm over here today.
A bit, right?
And yeah, so we're getting there. We were just talking just before we started the show here. Is it spring? And no, we haven't quite completed the checklist to be spring. We've set the clocks ahead, so that's done. There are trees starting to bloom, so that's done. Nate said he's noticed some pollen starting to fall, so that's done. And there are birds that have made a nest on my porch and are very irritated by me coming into or leaving my house. So, but officially, I don't think we're spring yet.
They're doing a bad job of surveillance, those birds. They're supposed to
That's
be
right.
cool, so you can, they can spy on you. You know what? I actually Googled it while you were talking. We're close to spring, though. It's surprising.
A week,
winter seemed
next
like it
week, huh?
Yeah, March 20th on Thursday,
All right.
March 20th.
Cool.
So
good stuff.
apparently that's spring. What happened to winter? I'm not necessarily upset to see it go. I'm just surprised it's gone already. I really thought we had more time. Oh well. Yeah, I'm cool.
You know, we usually get what is lovingly referred to as the false spring, where we get a couple weeks of nice weather, and then we dip back down pretty cold for a while. We did that this year, but it was only like a couple more cold days. Really.
Yeah.
So I'm not mad at it. I'm not going to argue with it at all. Well, y'all, it is St. Patrick's Day. We're going to drink some beers. And Brian, what are your beers of the week?
Yeah, so I pre-gamed with something called a Ginling. Do you know what that is, Tim? A Ginling?
I think I can decipher it there.
Okay.
I'm assuming you got some Guinness and some Yingling.
You are correct.
Okay. Yeah.
It's also known as the Pennsylvania Tan, the Philadelphia Black and Tan, but Ginling, I kind of like that. But yes, it's a half and half with Guinness and Yingling. It was pretty good. I was looking over.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking over the list of all the various combinations, and I realized I don't know if I've ever actually done that, and it's not hard to get Yingling and Guinnesses everywhere. So I decided that was going to be my thing to start off the prep for the show. Now I'm into a Guinness, a draft out of the can with the widget. I do got to say, though, if you want to split the G out of the can, it's not enough beer to really be a challenge to split the G. You could basically sip it one time and it right in there. So that's a problem for that. I am currently at the camera's not really behaving, but I am currently
and this is
actually
a podcast,
at the split.
So
yeah, that's true.
It's
take my word for it. I have split the G.
You've got a pint can in an imperial pint glass, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes, and these official glasses were sent to us some years ago by Guinness.
Yeah,
so that was pretty neat to put them to use. I know they're too large for what I'm drinking, but I feel the need to use the proper glassware, so I'm doing that. So
you just need to get a nitro tap at the house, Brian.
I do. A nitro kegerator. That would be great.
Yeah.
I would be fine with that. I would probably drink enough Guinness to make it worthwhile. I'm like, well, what am I going to have tonight? I do have that entire keg of Guinness.
Yeah.
I guess I'm having it.
You justify it. That's you're like, well, I got to justify having this keg of Guinness here. So.
And Brian, I'd be fine with it too if you invited me over.
Yeah, I'm never going to do that.
Never. That's not going to happen. Come on. He'll just drink a lot.
That'll just never happen. But yeah, and I'd be fine with it because it's only 4.2%. Actually, I was reading the Untapped page. The official write-up says Guinness actually varies from 4.1% to 4.3% depending on what packaging you get it in and who knows what else. But so it's a pretty low ABV, very sessionable beer. And following this up later on in the show, or perhaps in the after party, I will be getting into Sullivan's Black Marble Stout, which is one that became available every year in a strong way. Like a year or two ago, that just started showing up everywhere. I think it kind of disappears until St. Patrick's Day, and then it's the package store I was looking at just littered with it, just like it was everywhere. I'm like, I remember that being pretty good, so I'm going to get into that again.
The pumpkin ale of March.
That's right.
What we've got there. Yeah.
But I look forward to this one, unlike the pumpkin ales and, the actual Halloween season. So
seasonal creep, you got your Dry Irish Stouts coming out in January. Like, what is this? We won't. People never complain about their Dry Irish Stouts hitting the shelves too early. So
Well, no, Guinness is always around, and
Guinness
some
is,
places
yeah.
always have a tap on. So I'm fine with that any time of the year. If I'm going to an Irish pub, I'm gonna get a Guinness probably, unless there's something more exciting on, and there frequently isn't. And Guinness is fine. There's nothing wrong with a Guinness.
No, I like a good Guinness every now and then. It's
Yeah.
good stuff. Nate, what are you sipping on?
So in my tradition of being unconventional, I am sipping on a Jameson Mai Tai that Brian posted in our group chat a couple days ago, and I just happen to have all the ingredients for it. So 2 ounces of Jameson, 3/4 ounce orgeat, which is an almond sweet liqueur, 3/4 ounce lime juice, and 1/4 ounce of dry curacao, and it's really tasty.
All
And
right.
then for a beer of the week, my follow up is going to be a Guinness German.
As you do. As you do.
As you do.
Good stuff. Well, guys, I have got a Guinness foreign extra stout for my beer. So I do have a Guinness, but went with the foreign extra stout, something a little different than the draft, and also something I just happened to have. So it definitely made it easy. I didn't have to go out and do any extra shopping. Made use of one of the hundreds of beers I've got around here gathering dust. So I thought that was a pretty good reason to open it up. I had to hunt for a bottle opener because everything gets in cans these days. So I didn't really have a bottle opener handy, but I made it through.
I wonder if that's going to change sometime soon, considering how expensive aluminum's probably going to get.
No telling. They're going to start putting them in Ziploc bags. That's going to be the way we get our beer.
You know what? The bladder,
Lambics, man.
Yeah, the still lambics, man. That's
yeah.
I think that can squeeze its way in between the tariffs. It can just kind of squeeze through that little hole between them.
Maybe this is what, right? Maybe this is what it needed. Like, COVID was all around awful, but it got a lot of people work from home, and a lot of places got the right to have their delivery of alcoholic beverages and that. So maybe these tariffs are a good reason for still lambics to have their moment.
I'd say so.
We'll cross our fingers for that.
I'm on board.
I'm hoping.
Time. We all St. Patrick's Day. We are going to dive into it. We've got all kinds of fun stuff to talk about with St. Patrick's Day. And one thing Brian gave us some stats on last year was the National Retail Federation's consumer plans, or not last year, excuse me, recently the predictions for St. Patrick's Day and what was going on, or it is last year. You were looking at 2024, right?
Yeah. I'm comparing this year versus last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at what they were projecting last year versus what they're projecting this year for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, so it seemed like a fun thing to do. Let's see if there's a significant difference from one year to the next. We've got some major changes in the world, so maybe there's going to be some differences. And it does look like there's going to be a little less partying across the board in 2025, according to the metrics they collect. 61% plan to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, which is down 1% from their 2024 prediction that they published. On average, participants will spend $43.64, which is slightly down from $44.40 last year. The total expected spending on the holiday is $7 billion, down from $7.2 billion. In terms of celebration plans, 79% will be wearing green, which is down from 82%. So that's a little bit of a significant drop there. 30% will make a special dinner. This is the one figure that's actually up from last year. It was only 29% last year. So I guess there's going to be a few more people staying home, but they're going to do something special. 24% will decorate their home or office, which is down from 26%. 26% will attend a party at a bar or restaurant, which is also down 1%. 15% will attend a private party, down 1%. 14% will attend a parade, also down 1%. And 11% will host a party, also down 1%. So this survey of 8,568 U.S. adults was conducted between the end of January and February 5th, and it has a margin of error of plus or minus 1.1 percentage points, which kind of tells you that this might actually be within the margin of error. There may not be a significant difference that you notice between 2024 and 2025, though I suspect that if there is, things will be slightly less good. But
I think a lot of the changes that we're anticipating are going to happen from some of our our current leadership's changes, they haven't hit us yet.
Yes, that's
so
true.
people aren't really doing lifestyle changes yet. It's as of right now, I think people are probably still. Most people are about where they were last year. And I was going to ask about that margin of error, Brian, because I'm like, we're talking 1% to 2% here. Status quo. People are going to St. Patrick's Day the same way they St. Patrick's Day last St. Patrick's.
I'll bet that for real that there will be fewer people wearing green. Not a ton, but that's outside of the margin of error, and there was a couple of others that were actually 2%, so like slightly less. And so if the numbers are correct and at least partially correct or trending in the right direction, 2024 will still have the record for the total spending on St. Patrick's Day, the per person spending, and the record for percentage of people celebrating, at least going back to 2007 when they started publishing these predictions. So 2024 seems like it's the high point, the high watermark for everything St. Patrick's Day. We'll see. We'll see what happens next year. Maybe people will be in the mood to party just because they need to blow off a little steam, and they'll go the other direction. We don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen next year.
As I've gotten older, St. Patrick's Day has become one of those holidays that I avoid because, no disrespect to anybody in saying this, it's the amateur hour holiday. It's one that people go out to get schnockered on. And I'm older and crotchetier than I used to be. And I used to be part of the amateur hour crowd, very much so, but now not really my jam. So I take it a lot easier. I wouldn't mind, some nice corned beef and cabbage and a pint of Guinness, maybe a Reuben or something. That's the way I'll celebrate the holiday. I'll wear a shirt with our logo on it, so I got a little splash of green there, and we'll be good to go, man.
Yeah, it's really a matter of, I like it as an opportunity to do something different. I don't drink Guinness for most of the year. I definitely don't do the half and halves or the black and tans. Yeah. And it's like, you know what? Now's the time. Now is a great time to do it. I've got a window of time. I'm going to play around with dry Irish stouts and mixing them and having a good time. Corned beef, all that sort of thing. And I like Irish pubs. So it's a kind of a nice reminder to go out and enjoy those things, because the rest of the year, let's be honest, I'm probably not going to have much Guinness, and I'm probably not going to I may wear green occasionally, but that's just because I have green shirts.
Just going to happen. Yeah. My issue is it's crowded. It's so crowded on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, very interesting. Well, Brian, outside of predictions of that, we're going to talk about the history of St. Patrick's Day, some of the myths and legends and lies that go along with it.
Yes, correct. And I think we'll start with the history of the celebrations. So the big one, in 1848, several New York Irish aid societies decided to unite their parades into one official New York City St. Patrick's Day parade. Today, that is the world's oldest civilian parade and the largest in the United States, with over 150,000 participants every year. 3 million people line up to see it, and it lasts for 5 hours or so. Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Savannah also have major parades, and they get, and I don't have the exact figures on those, and it ranges from one to the next, but it's between 10,000 and 20,000 participants in each one of those. Chicago, another big thing is Chicago dyeing the river green. They began the tradition of dyeing the Chicago River green in 1962. The mayor originally wanted to dye the Lake of Michigan, the entire thing, which is aggressive. Kudos to him. He shot for the moon with that one. But the first year they used 100 pounds of vegetable dye, and they kept it green for a week, which is pretty impressive, honestly.
All right.
The dye they use now, which we looked up a few years ago, is really interesting. It's actually an orange powder, if you can believe it. Mm-hmm. The recipe for that stuff is a closely guarded secret, which is fun. And all we know about it is that it's an orange powder that turns green when it gets into the water. So I don't know if it's the water or something in that particular water that does it. But now they only use 40 pounds, but it only lasts for a few hours. So that's a much less efficient powder, but arguably possibly better for the environment. I don't know. I don't know how bad the other one was. It was just a vegetable dye, but you don't really need your river to be green for a week. I mean, a few hours is fine. It's cool.
Kind of cool.
Well, I want like a few hours makes sense to me because I was thinking no matter how much dye you used, I mean, a river, that's moving water.
Yeah.
So for it to stay dyed for a week, was it a slow release kind of thing there? Because
I wonder if that's
I would
if that
think
was
even
part
if
of
it was, because I was thinking even if it was like glowing neon green, just so much dye in there, the water's still moving. It's gonna, it's
Yeah,
gonna
you would
push it
think.
down.
Well, I wonder how fast it's moving through that area. Maybe it's a very lazy river.
I
I don't
would
know.
bet that it moves. I bet it moves out a lot faster than a week. I can tell
It
you
probably.
that. So
So it probably had to be spaced out. Now,
I
because
would think.
I was also unsure how that even works.
Yeah.
Like, what is it like?
Crazy.
Like, how heavy is that? Is that dye? Is it stuck to the bottom of the river? Is that what they're seeing? I
We
don't
need
know.
some sciencey explanation here, or historical. So we need some historical science on
Exactly.
exactly what went down here.
All of it's so super proprietary. They might not have, made any of that available. Maybe it was just like mercury. It's like not mercury, but it's plutonium.
Mercury.
It's making everything glow for a week or something.
Like, is that? Are we sure about this, guys? Are we sure this?
Like,
No, it's fine.
Is this radioactive?
It's fine.
Ah, it's a vegetable dye.
But
It's
look how
fine.
nice
You're
it
good.
looks.
It looks great. You'll love it.
Good stuff, man. We need to dye something here. Like people get uppity about dyeing the beer green. I don't even think. I'm not sure we could dye the Chattahoochee green.
I think we could. I mean, I don't know if I think it might irritate a lot of people, though. I don't know if we could get people behind that. But I mean, if they could do the Chicago River, the Chattahoochee shouldn't be too bad.
Should be able to
right?
get the hooch. Yeah. Who knows, man? Who knows? Well, Brian, more St. Patrick's Day, all St. Patrick's Day, the background historical of St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, all the fun history of what it really is all about. Obviously, we know that it's celebrated annually on March 17th, which is inconveniently a Monday this year. We got to work on that. It's been observed as a religious holiday for over 1,000 years, which is insane to think about. According to a video I saw on the History Channel recently, it's thought that the holiday actually began not long after St. Patrick's death. So it may be way more than 1,000 years, in fact. But historically, people would attend church in the morning and then drink and dance and eat the traditional meal of Irish bacon and cabbage. So about St. Patrick, though, he lived during the 5th century, born in 390. And he was apparently kidnapped and brought to Ireland as a slave when he was 16. And this is all I got this from the History Channel. So this is supposed to all be true. He escaped, but he later returned to Ireland. The story is he had a dream that told him he needed to return, and so he did. He is credited with bringing Christianity to Ireland, and according to legend, he did this by using the Irish clover to explain the Holy Trinity to locals, which I think is part of the reason the clover is such an important thing. He is believed to have died on March 17th, 461, or 1,564 years ago. So this may have been celebrated almost that long. Although Patrick was venerated as a saint in Ireland from the 7th century onward, he was actually never formally canonized by the Catholic Church. He was basically a saint by popular opinion. I looked into that because I was curious. Why not?
Is he officially a saint now, or has it still not happened?
I believe. Yeah, he's in the what was it? In 1630, he was added to the Catholic Book of Prayers. The thing was of the Feast of St. Patrick. So I think he's recognized as a saint now.
Okay,
it's not just like a he's not like he got
grandfathered
fake doctor
in or something. Yeah.
I think he got grandfathered in. But the real reason behind it is when he was around, he wasn't formally canonized as a saint because they didn't have a process for doing that. Like they didn't have. They have a process now. I'm not Catholic, so I'm just saying what I found about it online. They didn't do that because they didn't have a process for it. I think that they could make saints, but they didn't have. I think they have structure now to like you can apply for somebody to become a saint after the fact, and I think you have to do like 3 miracles or something like that. So I'm guessing that they came up with plenty of miracles for St. Patrick.
Totally off topic, but I heard a story the other day about someone making their dog a saint. That
no kidding.
This dog protected a child from an attack by a snake, and the owner of the dog saw like the carnage afterwards and thought the dog had attacked the baby and killed the dog. And then when he found the baby hidden safely, and of course this could all be urban legend, but apparently he felt so guilty he made the dog a saint, And again, this was during the time when there wasn't like a formal process or anything, but apparently the Catholic Church did finally come in and be like, you can't do that. You can't make a dog a saint, which
Saint Fido.
Honestly, man, I kind of think there's a lot of dogs that probably deserve it more than humans. But yeah, there was a dog that was a saint, apparently.
For a little while anyway. Yeah.
For a minute. For a
hot minute. So yeah, you know what? Let's get into some fun misconceptions and trivia about St. Patrick's Day. So St. Patrick was not Irish, and this is a little controversial. Since we started talking about this, I found stuff online about people that disagree with that and disagree with his ancestry and where he comes from. So I'm gonna put that caveat out there. This is what I've read, and there are a lot of different ways to look at it. He was apparently born in Roman-occupied British Isles and may have either been Italian, and they think if he was most likely named Patricius, or he was of indigenous Celtic descent, and he may have been named Maewyn Suchet. And I did find a website that was very much about how that is a lot of baloney, and he was definitely not that. So
okay, all right.
The History Channel and BBC History seem to side with the indigenous Britain theory, him being a Celt. And yeah, there's people out there that have lots of thoughts about this. But so, yeah, what is he famous for? Obviously, people here, he drove the snakes out of Ireland. Ireland never had snakes. The snake legend is really just a metaphor, probably for him bringing Christianity and driving out paganism from Ireland. So that's what he drove out. The snake is paganism, basically. So where and when was the first St. Patrick's Day parade? Well, the records show that St. Patrick's Day parade the first one was held in a Spanish colony that is now St. Augustine, Florida, back in March 17th, obviously, 1601. So it goes back to 1601. Okay. They were doing parades. The parades got popular in major American cities starting in the late 1700s. Because it's a religious holiday up until the 1970s, and this is fun. Irish laws mandated that pubs be closed on March 17th. So pubs were closed until the 70s on St. Patrick's Day, if you can believe it. That's just hard to even fathom. But yeah, tourism, the dollars there made them change their mind on that. People wanted to come in and have beers and have a good time. The other thing, you see leprechauns, associated with St. Patrick's Day a lot, and they don't really have anything to do with St. Patrick's Day. They're part of they're tied to the pre-Christian beliefs in fairies from Ireland, and it's kind of tacked onto the holiday by Americans, or so the story goes. The images we typically see of leprechauns really come from the unflattering caricatures of Irish immigrants from around the time of the potato famine when they were coming over. So the leprechauns were really just kind of like really offensive images that just became turned into something else that was less offensive. So, and another thing that we like to talk about every year, that corned beef is actually not the traditional Irish dish for St. Patrick's Day. It originated in the 20th century in New York City's Lower East Side. It was just a cheaper alternative to the traditional Irish bacon, at least at the time. I don't know which is more expensive right now, but we in the U.S. typically want our corned beef to go with our traditional festive drinking and eating.
We just totally did whatever we wanted to with this holiday.
Yeah.
Corned beef,
as is the American way.
Corned beef, leprechauns, all of this stuff. Let's do it up. Man.
We know Irish better than the Irishmen.
Of course we do. We know everything better. That's the American way.
We see how you do Irish, and we're going to do it better. Yeah. Like, we're going to improve it, and we're going to make it our own. We're going to do it better. We're going to do the best St. Patrick's Day ever. I'm like, it's not even your holiday. It is now.
This does sound like a holiday that, like, the lore of it developed with a bunch of drunk people. Like, I can see a couple guys getting together, like, the year after his death. It's like, hey guys, let's grab a pint and talk about good old Patrick, St. Patrick. He was a good dude. He's like, yeah, there are 4 pints in there. And they're like, yeah, he brought Christianity to the country, and he drove those pagans out. And some drunk dude over goes, yeah, those lousy snakes.
That's right.
Like, yeah, he drove the snakes out of here. And then
they're like, he didn't drive the snakes out. Look around. Have you seen a snake? No, that's because he drove them out.
Proof positive.
Proof positive. Yes.
Great. Holiday traditions steeped in alcohol are always the best ones. That's for
They
sure.
are definitely the best. Yes.
Yeah. And, talking about the bacon, I believe Irish bacon is different than our bacon, our pork belly. I know that, like, I think British bacon is, they call them rashers. It's back bacon, is it?
Yeah, back
I don't know
bacon,
for
right?
sure,
Yeah.
but something like that. But I know that our typical, like, thin pork belly slices are different.
I think that I ask this every year, but is Canadian bacon very similar to that? And I don't actually know.
That's
I think
basically ham,
Oh,
isn't
no.
it?
Yeah.
right? Isn't it kind of ham?
Essentially.
I think Canadian bacon is ham. Yeah.
So everybody does.
And if
this
it's
weird
not,
thing
this
with
is
bacon.
America, and we're going to call it ham.
That's
whether
right.
the Canadians like it or not. Which
that
seems to
ain't
be a
bacon,
theme
that's
with us
ham.
in Canada lately. So.
That's right. Have we put a tariff on Canadian bacon yet? Because that's
I'm sure it's in there, man. I'm sure it's in there.
83% tariff on Canadian bacon specifically. I mean, why not? They're targeting other things.
Coffee shops in Canada changed the name, or a coffee shop maybe changed the name of the Americano to the Canadiano. They did it, which reminds me way back, and I don't even remember what the deal was with France. This would have probably been early 2000s, but there was some deal.
Oh God!
Someone got irritated with France about something that happened. So there were places that changed the French fries to like freedom fries.
Freedom fries.
And stuff like that. And
but also in more recent news, when Russia invaded Ukraine, a lot of people renamed the Moscow Mule. I don't remember what they named it to, but they just refused.
But they got rid of Moscow. Yeah. Y'all, this is a true story, and Brian probably remembers it, but I used to have a tavern in my town called the Right Wing Tavern. And all of their sandwiches were named after like prominent Republicans and that, and they definitely had freedom fries at the time. And
that sounds
it was I don't know how long it was here altogether, but it was only here like a year after I moved here. That was many years ago, but this is definitely a town where that was an appropriate venue for the town.
It is wild that I actually drove through there. I stopped in there and ate one time, and I thought at the time your town of Woodstock, which is really fancy and they developed and busy,
it is now
and, happening. That place was desolate. That was the only thing around, and I stopped in there. I'm like, oh, you know what? Let's stop in and get a beer and a burger. And I went in there, and I was amused by it. I'm like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't a bad place, and I mean they were friendly folks there. But Brian, as you and I talked about over the weekend, the difference in right and left 20 or 30 years ago was so much different than it is today. Like you could totally disagree with that. You could have a place called the Right Wing Tavern and people wouldn't burn it down within a week.
That's true. So, that's true. It didn't last very long, but it was not burnt down.
It was not. Yeah. It was not. That is true. Yeah. Brian, as we all know, you know what? Before we move on to this next, let's give a shout out to our awesome sponsor, O Truck and Tap.
O Truck and Tap. Yeah, so if you're listening to this episode in the car the day it drops, I hope that's because you're heading to Truck and Tap for their St. Patrick's Day party, because today is the day. It's at 8 p.m. Get over there. They'll have cocktail specials. They'll have Guinness. They'll even have green lager. And, of course, they will have 20 taps of great craft beer to choose from if you don't prefer either of those. So after you've had your green lager and your Irish whiskey chaser, it's time to look at the tap list, and that's where I come in with my beer picks for the week. And considering all the beverages that will be flowing this weekend, my picks will be beers with lower ABVs. At Truck and Tap Woodstock, I'm going with Creature Comforts Brew for One, MJF. It's a farmhouse lager made with fonio grain from West Africa. You've probably heard us talking about fonio grain in the past, so I couldn't pass it up. And the bonus is the proceeds go to the Michael Jackson Foundation for Brewing and Distilling, which supports education and diversity in the beer industry. So it's an interesting beer with an interesting grain for an interesting cause. So why not get that? At the Duluth location, I'm getting Highlands Gaelic Ale. It's always great seeing this classic amber ale on tap. If you haven't had it before, you really should. And if you haven't had it in a while, you also really should. So that's all I got to say about that. Drink it. It's a good time for it. At Truck and Tap Alpharetta, my pick is Moody Tongue's Grisette. It's another style you just don't see around that often. And when it's done right, it's wonderful. This Franco-Belgian style farmhouse ale is said to be lightly tart with flavors of wheat, straw, and chamomile. Straw. You know what? It sounds rustic. It actually sounds really good. I think it would be great. I know Moody Tongue does really good work. And I love a good grisette. And finally, at the Lawrenceville location, I'm going with Samuel Smith's Organic Chocolate Stout because it's been forever since I last had it. It's a good time for chocolatey, low ABV stouts right now. As the name indicates, all the ingredients are organic, and the brewing water was sourced from an ancient 250-year-old well, so that makes it super special. So, and it's also a good beer. So, special ingredients, good beer, worth getting. But if you'd like to check out the tap list for yourself and see what's happening at your local Truck and Tap, check out their website, truckandtap.com. And thank you to Truck and Tap for your support.
Thank you, Truck and Tap. We greatly appreciate it. You know, Zach West made a comment that's funny. He said, driving out the pagans and then making a holiday for him is funny because the other well-known holiday from Ireland is Halloween, which is from the pagans. So,
oh, yeah. Yes.
Take their holiday, drive them out there. And I do believe that, you know, one thing, I think that, like pumpkins and ghosts and bats and vampires, I do believe that's very traditional, like old Irish. I think we nailed that one. We probably got all that. That's total BS. I'm just making
sense. No, like, is that what all that is? I'm like, I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, this is very traditional. This paper ghost hanging in this tree, that is very traditionally Celtic pagan there. So, yeah.
Definitely.
You know, Brian, this is something that I've been thinking about us adding to the show. Y'all, if you like this type of thing, let us know and we'll do more of it. I'm just going to call it a style profile. And of course, with this being St. Patrick's Day, we're going to talk about the dry stout, which was formerly known as the Dry Irish Stout. And the information we're sharing comes from the BJCP guidelines. BJCP is the Beer Judge Certification Panel, which is the overseeing body for home brewers. Like if you want to get a little more formal with things, and if you're trying to brew to a certain style and looking for all the style guidelines and that, the BJCP keeps those. So this is the style profile for the official beer of St. Patrick's Day, at least in America. I bet Guinness is probably the official one in Ireland too. That's the official beer for everything in Ireland.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but the category is now called dry stout by the BJCP. And Brian, what in the world makes a dry stout?
Yeah, so they moved it around. In past shows, we reported that it was 15B, but they've changed it around. So it was Dry Irish Stout. Now it's just dry stout, like you said. But in terms of flavor, like its appearance, its flavor, it's a lot of things. But the flavor, the most important part, it's got to have a moderate roasted grainy sharpness, optionally with some light, moderate acidic sourness and medium to high level of hop bitterness. So there's a little bit of range in hops. I don't think shouldn't be the bitterness should be up there, but I don't think the actual flavor of hops is not going to be very high. It should have a dry, coffee-like finish from the roasted grains. It may have some bittersweet or unsweetened chocolate character in the palate, lasting into the finish. And it obviously, with the stuff on nitro, you can expect maybe some creaminess up to a medium level of hop flavor. Again, the bitters can be high, but the actual hop flavor needs to be capped out at medium. And little to no fruitiness, and you don't want any diacetyl. No butteriness in this. Some creaminess, yes, no butter. In terms of appearance, it should be jet black to deep brown with garnet highlights in color. That's the official phrase. I forget what garnet is. I think it might be like a deep purple.
I think it is. That sounds right. Yeah.
It can be opaque, but if it's not, it should be clear. There are no hazy dry Irish stouts. Please, let's not go there. No haziness here.
Yet.
Yet. We'll have to expand. The BJCP will add the hazy dry stout to it next year, I'm sure. And of course, the thick, creamy, long-lasting tan-colored head is pretty characteristic. White to tan. So, that's what you're looking for. That is a dry stout, like not dry Irish, but just dry stout. If you've had one before, and you probably have, you know what we're talking about. All of this will make sense to you. And of course, they are frequently served from a nitro tap, and some packaged versions, have a nitro widget, but that's not a requirement. I'm like, there's plenty like the export stout that don't have the nitro widget, so not uncommon to get it without that. The ABV generally ranges from 4 to 5%, and I still hear people talking about how a stout and Guinness isn't that a big beer. It's not. It's 4.2%, and at the top end you're looking at maybe 5% with the dry stout. So that's what a dry stout is. Yeah, very approachable, dark in color, some nice roastiness, maybe some chocolatiness, some coffeeness to it. it's an easy drinking beer. It's a very enjoyable beer, and it's good for the time of the year when it stops being so cold, but it's not super hot yet. Fits in nicely in, spring or
It
honestly
does.
any time of the year, but right
In the
now
fall,
especially.
spring. I was gonna say even in warmer weather, it is not a heavy stout, so it's something that you definitely can drink it year round. But I agree, Brian. The cooler, not even necessarily cold, the cooler temps. It's perfect for those transitional seasons.
Definitely.
Yeah.
My thought is if you can drink coffee in that weather, either cold or hot, then you could drink a dry Irish stout. Yeah,
drink
you could
a
drink
stout.
one then. Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Brian, Guinness. And some other examples of the dry Irish stout. I think Guinness, it defaults. Everybody knows Guinness, but we also got, as Brian mentioned earlier, there's the marble, the Sullivan's Black Marble is a dry Irish stout. There's Murphy's, there's Beamish, O'Hara's. Left Hand has one. I think it's called Fade to Black. Is that right?
Oh,
and as we're coming up on St. Patrick's Day, a lot of local breweries your local brewery will make an Irish stout there. So we definitely see them around. I'm forgetting the name. Jekyll Brewing had a good one, has, and I forget what that one was called.
I can't think of it. They have, and it's just on the tip of my tongue, and maybe Nate can pick these up, but I know that they do a parade. Three Taverns does a whole parade with a bagpiper, and it's like, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Mary something.
Yeah.
They do a nice parade there. And
McGee or something. No, that's the pub. I think the Irish pub, but yeah, it's kind of a big thing. Yeah. We've got quite a, I think we have a decent Irish population or people with Irish ancestry here in the Georgia area. So we got a lot of people that when the time comes around for St. Patrick's Day, they're ready to drink something, if not Guinness, something produced locally that is a dry Irish stout.
The Mabel McNally.
Mabel McNally, that's the thing
that's the Three
Taverns things, and Three Taverns. Yeah, Three Taverns does the beer. Okay,
the
cool.
downtown Decatur thing. Yeah.
So if you're ever in the Atlanta area for St. Patrick's Day, Brick Store, the parade from Three Taverns to the pub and bagpiping and good beer and food, you will have a good time.
Have you ever done that? I have not.
No. There's every time I hear about parades of some sort, like we do the big one here for the Dragon Con, and that always looks interesting. Everybody's cosplaying and doing all kinds of stuff. And I keep saying I want to get down there. And Little 5 Points does a Halloween parade that's supposed to be pretty cool. But no, I don't go to any of them. I talk.
That's right.
That's about it. That is about it. Well, Brian, very fun. Guinness again. Guinness getting mentioned a lot here, but we've got some Guinness trivia that you've gathered up for us, Brian. Tell us more about Guinness.
Yeah, they've been around a while, so there's a lot of fun things that they've done and historical stuff that's happened with them. But it is, in fact, as no surprise, the most popular dry Irish stout in the world, and it's basically synonymous with the holiday. It's probably even more. I can't even believe this, but it's probably even more popular now in 2025 with everybody splitting the G these days on social media. I don't know how a brand this old and arguably this not as exciting is as exciting as it is. I like it. I'm not going to begrudge them a bit, but Guinness was founded by Arthur Guinness in 1759, and the influencers are all over this right now. But they began exporting beer as early as 1769, 10 years later. Guinness is currently brewed in 50 countries and available over 120. The St. James Gate Brewery in Dublin has had 20 million visitors, or at this point, this might be an older statistic, so it's probably a lot more than this, but they've had over 20 million visitors since it was opened in 2000, including myself. I've been there. I hung out on the rooftop bar, took in the sights, drank some Guinness, and enjoyed myself. It was a good time. It's been a lot of years, though. It's been a long time since I've been there. So Guinness gets its signature tang from blending a portion of aged beer with the fresh beer. Now, it's not. I'm not sure if they still do this. This is how they did it for many years. They There's no confirmation of it. They may use some other kind of ingredients to accomplish this, but the idea was souring a little bit of Guinness and adding it back into the beer to give a little extra, a little pop, a little tang. So if you notice that in Guinness, and you probably will, that's what that comes from. The widget in the can of Guinness was invented by them in 1988, according to the company. Guinness, you look at it and you think it's jet black, but actually it's a very dark shade of ruby. And sometimes if you get it just right with the light, you can actually kind of see that there's a little bit of a redness to it. Guinness is, and this is one that's I make a point of saying every year because I keep seeing the forwarded emails and the links, but Guinness is suitable for consumption by vegetarians and vegans, despite what you might see people sending around the internet. In 2017, they introduced a new filtration process which eliminated the isinglass or fish bladder stuff from the beer's clarification process. They were using that to clear out the beer. So, yeah, it is an animal product, and the whole point of it is you put it in the solution, the alcohol. It will bind with things that are in it and pull it to the bottom. So it wasn't even in the beer, the finished beer, but I get it. People had a problem with that. They don't use it anymore. So if that friend forwards you an email about it again this year, tell them to knock it off. They don't do that. They stopped it.
No more. No more fish bladders in Guinness.
That's right. No more fish bladders. Completely fish bladder free since 2017. So to celebrate their 200th anniversary in 1959, this is fun. I don't think they could do this now, but they dropped 150,000 embossed bottles into the Atlantic Ocean from 38 different ships over a period of 6 weeks. The bottles contained unusual documents, so like a message in a bottle type of thing, like a colorful certificate from the office of King Neptune. So yeah, the guy from the sea, and instructions on how to turn the bottle into a lamp. So if you found the bottle many years ago, and every time I see this, I'm wondering, is there still a bottle that's floating around that nobody's found? Like, how many years has it been? 1959? Like, yeah, 70-ish years ago?
Nearly 70 years, yeah.
I'm guessing it's worn down to next to nothing at this point, but yeah, so that's fun. I don't think they could do that now just because people would get all on them for, it's kind of littering.
For throwing stuff in the ocean? Yeah.
Yeah. People are like, well, it's meant to be picked up, but but it might not be. So, and the whales might eat it or something. I don't know,
They might start their own St. Patrick's Day and mess up all these traditions us Americans have created.
That's true. We don't want those whales getting involved in this. That would be terrible.
Trouble. That'd be cool, man. I'll have to do some Googling and see if I can find a picture of those 1950s bottles there. I love that kind of stuff.
I think I did one time, and it didn't occur to me. Yeah, it would be cool. Could you imagine getting one of those bottles? I imagine they're rather expensive. Yeah. I'd like to know how much they sell for now, because something like that is intriguing. And with Guinness being as popular as it is now, my guess is its collectability amongst people who collect things is probably at an all-time high.
Oh, no doubt.
The popularity, yeah.
They should display one alongside Isaac Newton's beer mug.
They should, yeah. That would be
lots
fantastic.
of history going on there. That would be cool. Yeah. Well, Brian, black and tans, half and halves. I think Guinness, as far as making beer cocktails goes, or beer blends, is probably the best one. There's a lot of them out there, but Guinness has made an art of it. We even found an old booklet that they'd made, I think, from the 50s or 60s, maybe.
Yeah.
That told you about a bunch of different kinds, and some of them get pretty interesting, I'll say. But the short of it is you're layering two beers. One of them, of course, being Guinness, or really not even beer, because some are like orange juice or tomato juice or champagne or cider. But that is a half and half, with the most famous half and half being the black and tan. But Brian, you've got some info for those who may be stumped on how exactly do I do this and get it to come out right, and then a few quote unquote recipes for some half and half.
That pamphlet you're talking about, I do have a few notes on it. It was called the Guinness Blacklist, and it came out in like 1976.
All right.
And we did find a version of it online, and it's kind of like the mixes, the half and halves and all that. They kind of take a more of a cocktail approach with it. So the couple that I know we've tried include the Trojan Horse, which was Guinness and cola. You remember that one?
I do.
Pretty good.
Which was good. Yeah. The flavors, those flavors do play well together. Yes.
There is the redhead, which I don't think you tried, but I did. That's Guinness and tomato juice. And
Did you finally try that? Was
I
it
did.
terrible?
I tried to talk myself into liking it, like saying it's not that bad. No, it's bad. It's just
bad.
it's
Okay.
it's just not good.
Yeah.
I think the problem is maybe the tomato juice, and I'm just being an apologist for it. The tomato juice had pulp in it, and it was just that's kind of gross. That part,
Okay.
if I could have clarified tomato juice in Guinness, maybe that would work. And one I do like that I have tried is called Midnight, which is Guinness with a dash of port, which in my case is Guinness with like about a half shot of port in it, maybe a full shot. That's actually delightful. That's pretty nice. So
okay.
Yeah, those are fun things. But in terms of the beer part where you're just mixing them half and half, so what is the half and half? It's the layering of two beers, with the Guinness being the one that's on top, which seems to defy gravity. If done properly, there should be a very visual separation of the beers in the glass. You should be able to tell where one ends and the other one begins. You've probably seen the pictures before. Your choice of beer will affect how well you can see the separation. I have made a fair number of blacksmiths in my time, and also black and reds. They're harder to see, especially if the lighting isn't very good, because you've got a deep reddish on top of a even deep reddish, more deep reddish. So the distinction isn't there. It is good. So you get a little lighting behind it. You can definitely see it. So it's not maybe as much fun visually, but how do you make it? So it's easy. You fill your glass halfway, whatever your non-Guinness beer choice is, and you've got a lot of them. Carefully fill it the rest of the way with Guinness by pouring it slowly and gently over the back of a spoon or some other specialty layering tool. It's really not that hard to do, but it might take a little practice to get right. You gotta be really careful with it, or you'll screw it up. And it's definitely harder to do after you've had a few of them. So that much I know. So there are a couple of common beer layering gadgets that I basically think I have all of these and have messed with all of them. But there's the black and tan turtle, which looks like a turtle that's bent to hang over your pint glass. That one works. It's messy, and in my opinion, it's easier to screw up. There is the bar spoon, which is basically a bent spoon that a lot of times has a thing that'll hang over the lip of your glass. It doesn't have a lot of protection against it. I think it's a little harder to do, but I think if you're a bartender, that's not a problem for you. There's a layering tool I picked up that kind of looks like something you would put in your sink to prevent things, food particles from going down your drain. It basically works like a shower head. You put it over your pint glass, and when you pour the beer into it, it rains down the beer gently, the Guinness gently on the beer. Man, that is idiot proof. I used that today, and I think it's great. I mean,
I see, because I thought maybe the holes would be too small, that it'd just be too slow of a process.
It's a little slow, but not too bad. In that it does a foam does build up on top of it, but seriously, it does a surprisingly good job. It's well done. It's kind of reminds me of when we were homebrewing the what was the shower head thing we had for sparging? That's what it is. It's like sparging your Guinness over the beer. And if you need to, you can just use a plain old spoon. The wider the spoon, the better. It helps if you kind of bend it backward a little bit so you can get it in there. You want to get it kind of closer to the beer line to not agitate the beer so much, so you'll get a better pour off of it. But honestly, the ones I've used, my favorite is that the what is it called? The perfect. I think it's called the Perfect Black and Tan is the name of it. It's that layering tool. Man, it's great. It's idiot proof. The turtle looks like the most fun. It also has a mouth that will open a bottle, but the layering tool is the best bet for just getting it done right every single time. So that's
Brian,
my thought.
these beer gadgets there.
I know. If there are gadgets out there to make something more interesting, I definitely got to try all of them. But I think I'm good with the ones I've got. I'm sure there are probably 83 more of them out there, and I'm good. I've got the ones I need.
I think people always try to do something to make this better or that better. Several years ago, actually, someone made this device that you took a can of beer and you put it on the top and squeeze it and then rotate it, and it cut the lid off and turned the beer into a quote unquote glass.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. It didn't work well, was the biggest problem. It wasn't sharp enough to get a clean cut. And sometimes you would crush the can trying to do it. And really, what's the point? That's I mean, I guess if you were out, let's say you're out camping, you're at a campfire and you want something, because yes, having an open top is going to give you more aroma, improve the flavor, at least somewhat there. But again, it was a device that was neat concept, but
The one flaw to it is, even in that camping scenario, if you really want to release the aroma and the flavors, the actual process of pouring it agitates it and brings all that out. So you'll still be stuck. You'll have better aroma and better flavor, but all of that CO2 is still stuck in there, and with it, all those aroma compounds. So unless you give it a good swirl while you're drinking it, even then, you're probably still not going to get as much as if you just pour it into a glass. Man.
Need to open one, chug it, open the other, and then you can pour back and forth between your empty can. So,
that is smart. That is the right way to do it.
Then you'll have your perfect pour right there.
Exactly. Perfect. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Well, Brian, some recipes, we're going to call them here, for these various half and halves. And again, the classic black and tan, Brian, Guinness and Bass is the one traditionally used in the black and tan, right? So outside of that, where do we go with these?
So yeah, after that, anything half and half is kind of a catch-all for just about anything. It's usually any lager. It's usually Harp, but any lager out there you want to split with, you call it a half and half. Black and blue is a popular one. People like to layer Blue Moon and Guinness together, and I've never tried that. I'm going to try that with Sweetwater Blue as well, but I've never tried. I don't know if I've ever tried either.
Totally different beer.
Yeah, I know, but Blue Moon and Sweetwater Blue.
I mean, for the name, it would fit. It wouldn't fit the style, but it would fit the name.
No, not at all. But I want to try both of them just because of the name. But Black and Blonde, Guinness came out with a blonde for a while. I'm not sure if it's still around, but that was the layering of Guinness Blonde and regular Guinness.
Yeah.
Black and Brown is Newcastle Brown. Black and Red is Killian's Irish Red. Blacksmith, my personal favorite, or a pint of special, is Smithwick's Red Ale. And that one I recommend, and I will be having some of those later. One that I always have to mention because it's funny and I've never tried it and I probably never will, is Black and Orange, which is with a pumpkin ale. Black and Gold, or Poor Man's Black Velvet, is cider, usually Magners and Guinness. Black Velvet is champagne, and that one can get a little boozy. The Dirty Hippie, which is a fun one, and I've seen it on menus here in Atlanta, is Sweetwater 420 and Guinness. Black and Bock, or the Irishman in Texas, is with Shiner Bock. Black Tire is New Belgium's Fat Tire, which has changed since Fat Tire has changed, but I guess that's still a thing. The one I had earlier, Gingling or Pennsylvania Tan or Philadelphia Black and Tan, is Yingling and Guinness. The Irish American, or the Black and Trash, which I love
Black
that name,
and Trash, is
stuff. Guinness with Miller or Budweiser, which is beautiful. And Black 8 or Black 8 Ball is Guinness with Old English 800. And someday I swear I'm going to try that.
I'm disappointed I haven't tried that one yet. Then I think last year I said the same thing. I'm like, okay, I got to try that. I've got to try it for sure.
This week for sure. This weekend for sure. Absolutely going to happen.
Good
I haven't
stuff,
seen
man.
Old English 800 in a while, come to think of it.
No, I haven't. Now, admittedly, I haven't been looking for it, but the last time, Brian, I remember getting into Old English 800 is back when our show was on the radio. We went down to see our friends at WVFT down in Tallahassee, Florida. And when we were looking for some local beers to take to the hotel with us, they had some 40s of Old English there.
Awesome.
So I was like, you know what? I haven't had one of these in nearly 30 years. Let me snag one. And it's something. And, I did that also with Mickey's. If you remember the Mickey's Big Mouth bottles.
Oh, yeah.
Because my memory of those is if they were the ice cold, they weren't bad. And my memory is obviously defective because even ice cold, it was very not enjoyable at all.
That's great.
Yeah, I didn't. And, it hurt me a little bit because I remember drinking Mickey's in my younger days and enjoying them quite a lot. But I guess my palate is more refined now.
Yes, you become more sophisticated. I can't even say the word.
Can't even say the word,
yeah.
man. Can't even say the word. Good stuff. Well, Brian, we love trivia, and we love beer, and not only do we have Guinness trivia, but we have black and tan trivia, Brian.
Yeah. So the black and tan is traditionally Guinness and Bass Pale Ale, like we said, and some people incorrectly also say it's Guinness and Harp. It is not. It's not actually an Irish tradition. This very much an American thing, and partly because they wouldn't use the phrase black and tan because that might be a little offensive to, especially to the older folks in Ireland, because back when there was a suppressing force, a British suppressing force, keeping them down in the 1920s, those guys were called the black and tan. So you really don't want to name any anything after those folks. So yeah, we already went over that Guinness pamphlet, and I would look for it online. It has some really interesting ideas of what you can do with Guinness involving things beyond just beer. But a common misconception is that a black and tan is a high ABV beverage. High ABV beverage. I can't get that one out. Clearly, it's high enough for me, but it's not. A black and tan is just 4.7% ABV. Obviously, if you get a black velvet, which is made with champagne, it's going to be a little boozier, and it's going to depend on how big the champagne is. So with the advent of Guinness Zero, a non-alcoholic half and half is now a possible thing. You can, use any kind of non-alcoholic lager and non-alcoholic Guinness and create a half and half, theoretically. I've never done it. I don't know how well it works, but it's possible. And another misconception that I see a lot is that Snakebite is a mix of lager and cider, not Guinness and cider. So that is not a Snakebite.
I've heard the Snakebite thing before as well, that was, but that's the black velvet. Or no, that's the low rent black velvet. Poor man's. That's the poor man's black velvet.
Poor man's black velvet
gold.
Or black and gold. That's right.
Good
so that's
stuff.
what that is. But I do see Snakebite thrown around like it's that. And I kind of actually want to have a Snakebite now. Also a black and gold, come to think of it. It's been a while, but
good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, y'all, plenty of options out there. Black and tans. Drink it straight up. Do what you want. Have some corned beef and cabbage. Celebrate like an American, or like wherever in the world you are. We do have international listeners.
We do.
It's not all Americans here, but St. Patrick's Day is always a fun time. Good food and good beers. So with that said, y'all, we hope that you have a great week. A happy St. Patrick's Day. Enjoy the nicer weather that's coming our way. If you dig what we're doing, please do consider sharing it with a friend, telling them to tune in. And if you really like what we're doing, we would love your support on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. We're going to send you out some swag. We're going to get you into the Discord server, and we're just going to have an all-around good time. But with that said, we hope that you all have a fantastic week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.